Thank you so much for coming today to listen to this talk between myself and Sophie-Yen Bretez. So, surrounded all of you today are the new paintings by Sophie-Yen Bretez for the occasion of her solo exhibition, which just opened a few days ago, called Powerful Despite It All, and this is the catalogue here. So this is Sophie-Yen Bretez's first solo exhibition in London, and indeed her first solo exhibition ever, really. So we're absolutely delighted to be showcasing these new pieces. We started working with Sophie last year. We took on 2 of her paintings as we were very interested in her work, and they instantly were seized by our collectors. People adored her work. They were fascinated both by the subject matter and also her really original technique. So a year later, here we are with a solo exhibition, which is not only a celebration as well of our 50th anniversary at JD Malat Gallery. It's also in association with Women Artists Art Week World, which is an association founded by Anya Sand and Catherine Hunt, who are here today. It was founded last year, and it is a foundation which supports women artists all around the world and really aims to foster gender equality in the art world and really promotes female artists such as Sophie. And indeed, Sophie's work is very much centered around womanhood and the female figure, female body, and woman and feminism, etc. But without further ado, I'm going to now ask Sophie some questions so she can tell you more about the exhibition herself and just more about herself. So I'm just going to pull out my questions. But just as a little brief introduction, Sophie is of Vietnamese origin, and she's been living in France for the vast majority of her life. And she's going to tell you all about her incredible story in a while. So, questions. I have these now. Here we are. Okay. So, just a little introduction, I suppose. This is your first show in London, as I've just mentioned. So I just wanted to get your thoughts. How do you feel? How does it feel to have all your artwork here in the space and to be surrounded by all these incredible paintings for the first time in your life?
I'm quite there is a lot of different emotions that's running through me. The first one is I feel very nervous because it's the first time my work and my vision of life, etc., of womanhood is exposed in a literal way, but it in front of others' eyes. So it's different, but just painting for yourself in your intimate space. So nervous, but also I feel very grateful and relieved to see all those 8 months of work coming to life in such a beautiful gallery that is JD Malat. So very grateful and I feel very impatient to dialogue with the audience about all the things that are present to them. Yes.
Thank you. So obviously I know a lot about you, and everyone at the gallery does as well, but for those of us that don't know you in the audience who may not be familiar, do you want to just give us a little brief summary about what you're about and sort of who you are as a person?
It's a difficult question to know who we are, but briefly, I'm a self-taught artist. I was born in Vietnam, and I come from a very poor family, and I grew up there for 4 years, and then I was adopted by my French parents, and I lived since my 4 ages in a very healthy and more healthy environment, but it was in Vietnam. And I had a very classic academic path. another work from the artistic one. So I was like kind of always the top of my class girl. But since I was a child, I have always been drawing and painting and always drawing women, always drawing and painting with colors. And I was occupying like fashion photography in Vogue, or Mouchard illustration, or Van Gogh painting, to just like doing. And it's by doing that I learned things about making art. And I grew up in the southwest of France, in La Rochelle. And I had, when I was a little girl, my art studio, and I tried like gouache, watercolor, painting on glass, etc. A lot of different techniques. And then when I was like in business school, I stopped doing 10 years painting and drawing. And then I started again after a few constitutive personal events in my life that I paint here, to start painting again. It's like 3 years ago, and I started my artistic career 1 year ago. So it's very new.
And just I had a question that I hadn't planned for, but just quickly, what made you want to go to a classic business school as opposed to an art school?
Because for me, it's a thing in the representation we have as women, like we don't see women artists. So if little girls are not able to see women artists in the public space, it's difficult to have the idea of wanting to become one. And it's like it's also the same in medicine, in the medical world, in all the expertise, like the expert and top level jobs. That's why it's really important to have representation of women in high level posts. So I never thought becoming an artist. So I wanted, when I was a girl, to be a fashion designer. And my mom took me to the Porto Verde, just
Open door
fashion school. And I said, okay, I don't want to spend my life just
sewing.
Yeah, I want just to have idea and to be creative director, not being the little hand making things.
Yeah.
So she said to me, okay, you want to be a fashion designer, so you're going to the top door, it is business school and entrepreneurship, and then once you have the background to know how to create your company, you create your fashion brand.
Okay. So now back to this exhibition. So it's called Powerful Despite It All, which is an amazing title. It's super strong. Can you give us a brief explanation of what this exhibition is about? And then afterwards we'll delve into more detail surrounding individual artworks, but just as a sort of basic summary of the exhibition, Powerful Despite It All.
So the first thing, this title aims to answering to two main and fundamental questions on the individual step, individual level. It is who I am, and regarding my past, regarding the event, who I am, and the answer I have is powerful despite it all. And on a more universal scope, the title of this solo show answers to one question, that is, what is womanhood? And so this is my definition of my identity, and also the definition of what womanhood is about. And nothing less, nothing more. I don't want to imprison womanhood in something, very gender-like or something. The important to deconstruct things about womanhood. And So it is with the two concepts of reverse voyeurism and narrative identity that I want to pose a question about on wider issue, whether it be political, philosophical, existential, on human condition, like especially female condition. And for who don't know the narrative identity concept, it is from Paul Ricoeur, who is a French philosopher. And he tried to find out what identity is about. And he found that identity, lexically, it came from, like in Latin, we have idem, which is in English the same. And we have also ipseite, which means the self. So the same is the characteristic through the years, but remains mine. Like I'm for Vietnamese born, I'm like small, I have some values which is na. It is the characteristics of someone. And then the ipseite, the self, is the ability to someone to act in the everyday life and to interact with people. And it's constantly adapt to the environment. So if I am the same and the self, which is like the opposite things, who I am. And so he created the narrative identity concept that is a way to reconcile the past and the present. And he is saying that the ability, knowing who you are, is knowing how to tell your story. And the narrative identity is telling that identity is not immutable, it's not fixed, it's always changing regarding who you are now, regarding the past. So the Sophie that's telling you her story now is not the same Sophie, but in 10 years, but will maybe retelling her story, but with new eyes. So it is like a renewed processes of self-narrative. So it is the same for womanhood, you know. Womanhood now is not the same definition of womanhood like 10 years ago, and it won't be the same 10 years after now.
From now. Yes.
From now.
From now. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So, symbolism plays a really important part in Sophie's paintings. So you may see the artwork around you, and it's visually very enticing and very attractive. But actually, it ends up being a lot more enticing and a lot more attractive the more you understand the stories behind each artwork. And that's certainly been my experience as I've learned the stories behind each painting, they can really come alive. So if we were to go through each painting, it would probably be given the whole day. I was hoping that Sophie could pick out perhaps your favourite painting from the exhibition and discuss in particular the symbolism that is linked to that particular painting.
Okay. Well, thank you. There is two favorites. The favorite one is that one because in terms of like impact of the colors of only the orchestration of all those elements are very like for me impactful, but it's not really my favorite.
So sorry to interrupt you. It might be really good if we could just read out the poem that goes. So every single painting has a poem associated with it, which is the title of the artwork. So I'm just going to get Sophie to. Do you want to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I always recommend to look at the painting first, and then to read the poem, and then to relook to the painting with fresh new eyes regarding the poems. So that poems should have seen tenderness instead of the blows and poses on my face. Another way to love, to learn how to love myself, being in the grip of his hands. So that ones, like all the paintings in this solo show, are life experience based. That one is about domestic violence and the impact on children that witness it. So here we have like pregnant mother here because the most victims of domestic violence is women and mothers especially. We have this biblical reference the snake here because the snake represents the grip of men on woman's body, and also because biblical, because you know there was the temptations of the snake towards Adam and Eve, and it was after the temptation of the snake that the fall of paradise happened. And here it is the fall of family paradise. Once children is witnessing domestic violence. And so we also have the Petrus bottle of wine. It is a reference to the alcoholism of my fathers, and I choose Petrus because it's like a vanity of pleasures. Also we have the shadow cast in the front corner here because it's about all the isolation of beaten mothers. They are socially isolated because of what kind of events. We have like the red curtain. It's a reference to the theatrical scene that happened in a very intimate way, and it's also a reference to the feelings of battered women, like they feel ashamed of what happened at home and they want to hide it from the others. And we have like all those barriers here. Despite the wide open spaces on the ocean, it testified the mental barriers in which women are imprisoned in. And for the records, all my sunset and infinite sunset line in my paintings means it symbolized the possible and the elsewhere, when the here and now is too difficult to overcome. So it's very a message of hope and resilience in each of my paintings. And also you can find in my paintings like a lot of books, and that books here, First Love of Ivan Turgenev, echoes all those intimate scenes because the writer depicts love as one of the most tragic things in the world. So it's not very positive, but it echoes to the both things he's saying.
And I suppose my question around this particular painting is, are you trying to make a message here about domestic violence in general, or is this more of like an autobiographical message that you're trying to like convey?
It's like, for me, it's both. For me, like I aimed to paint in a very autobiographic way, but I want to show the powerfulness and the universal scope of the infinite. So it's like, okay, I started from a very personal event, but after I want people to think about domestic violence in general, and they also their impact on children.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wanted to talk a little bit more about your artistic process. So there are obviously the paintings, but there's also the poems as well. So you've obviously done the sketches, which are the preparatory sketches. So I wondered if you could just talk us through a little bit how you go about making those paintings. Do you have an idea in your head, and then you go through it, and then you revise it, and then you do the poem, or does the poem come first? I'm just very curious around the order of things
Well, actually, the poems come first in a very spontaneous way. It's like when emotion or a specific memory runs through me, I write down something very like spontaneous versions in like little haiku. And then I remember, for example, for this solo show, I write down all those 14 poems in one night. It's like I knew what I want to speak about in this solo show. And so in one night, okay, I had all those poems very spontaneously coming on paper. And then in 1 week, I wanted to draw with colors all the paintings. So it is very at first step like little design drawings, and then I start bigger ones with colors, and they all come first like in 1 week. So I have an overview of all the colors of the solo show, because I wanted to treat the solo show as togetherness of painting and also
a group painting, so it's like
they coexist, and it is important for me that all the colors coexist quite well.
It's part of the series, one. Okay, fantastic. And so you've told us about the specific piece, and could you perhaps pick out another piece, maybe that's like your favorite painting, and why?
Well, the one is far from here, but I'll show you. There's only one diptych in the solo show.
So just for those of you looking, it's the first one when you come into the gallery on the left, which is divided into two. And it's a single figure of a woman in a bar. She's wearing trousers and she's overlooking the sea. And as you see, there's a little person as well on the boat.
And so the poem here is, it's not your fault if the roses fade. Ceaselessly enjoy everything, the fall and the rain, and every morning. There is only one regret, not having had enough time. So this one is my favorite because I depict one specific moment in my life after which I start to paint again. And it was in 2020, during like the first COVID years. I was diagnosed a tumor, and it is the moment I feel very overwhelmed by sadness, and this is why in this painting the main character is in the bath with water until her knees, and this painting is divided in two parts because you have like in the right side part, it's about the heaviness and the fragility of life, and there is a lot of different elements that represent it, like there is in her pocket a message that comes from the last line of a French poet, Aragon, and he wrote down a poem that calls Life Was Worth It, and in that line it's saying, I would say that despite it all, life was beautiful, and it was what I had to think about when I learned about the tumor. Like it's like a wise stance I have to have, but at that moment I didn't feel really wise, more like overwhelmed. And then we have this painting that the roses that fade. We have also like, if I remember, we have also on the floor the word tumor right down. And this part is in a very contrast to the uncluttered left part.
Uncluttered.
Yeah, uncluttered.
Uncluttered. Very empty.
Yeah. And it's about It's about life and it's about nature that remains after us, after all. And on the surfboard, there is written very, like in a very small, there will always be the water. So it is life that remains after all. So this one is very particular for me.
Thank you. It's funny because it's not my favorite painting. Yeah, I love it, but it's not my favorite. But the poem is definitely my favorite, and I love it. So I'm really happy you chose that one. Like, I love the words. Really amazing. I have another question for you that was not planned, but I'm going to ask you. Why do you choose to depict your female figures in such a stereotypical women body with these really round breasts, very Barbie doll figure? Is that clearly must be very intentional, and why do you do that?
Well, since I was a girl, I always painting female body like this. It's like kind of obsession, and then I discovered just before the solo show, but I wanted to exaggerate those perfect body because it responds to the concept of reverse voyeurism. So I use perfect body to pose question about all the construction, the beauty canon,
The criteria, modern beauty criteria, stereotypes
imposed to women, and so I wanted to question the sexualizing gaze on woman body. So I use it to
probe, detect.
J'ai vraiment poussé au paroxysme le corps sexualisé de la femme.
Okay, so she basically pushed to the limit this notion of this idealized female body with no imperfections and these kind of stereotypical attributes.
Yeah, and even if the body is really perfect, it doesn't mean it has to be sexualized.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And also it allows for more scope and emphasis to be placed on the actual figures and their faces and the emotions that they're experiencing as opposed to their body. And it gives us all-in-one body. That's good. Thank you for that. I'd love to hear more about your artistic influences. Which artists do you look up to for inspiration?
Well, I don't have very conscious inspiration. I think that since I was a little girl, I have always been surrounded by writers, philosophers, painters such as Simone de Beauvoir, Pablo Neruda, Albert Camus, and also Georgia O'Keeffe, Gerhard Richter, Hockney, Hopper, and I liked the vision of life and the human condition, and I identified with philosophy, and they shaped mine. So it's not very conscious, but
okay. And finally, what are you working on next? Where do you see yourself going? What's the next chapter for you, Sophie?
Well, I would like to keep exhibiting on the international sphere to keep the dialoguing with people, making good encounters with people around.
I'd like to also ask, I was looking at, I am just painting behind you all the time. It sort of reminded me of reclining you, the famous Olympic painting a little bit. She's sort of nude, but she's not shade, and also she's sort of staring back. And I checked that all paintings basically are the same, except for this one where we can't see the eyes. So I was wondering if you could maybe comment on this one. It seems a bit more sort of introspective than what I
The eyes are very important because it's about reverse voyeurism, and it's also to create distance with the viewer in order to create distance regarding the intimate that is presented to the viewer. And it's also like they all saying that they remain strong in face of the viewer, the sexualizing gaze, and also in face of all those events, the traumatic events that I depict. And in that one, yeah, we don't have any eyes because it deals with the difficulty to have a stable identity when the eyes of a parent or someone that is very important for you is not present. It's not present, you know. But it's why we have like a lot of reference to reflections, but we never see the eyes because and we have mise en abîme, but it's never the same in the paintings, and yeah, it's the difficulty to have a stable identity.
Does anyone else have any questions for Sophie before we end talk?
It's very striking works, and it's very, yeah, I think, like I can see myself involved in like many parts of works, which is, it becomes more personal space. Yeah.
I have a question. Sophie, thank you so much for your presentation today. The reference to water and drinking and tears, is there symbolism there as well?
For me, there is many things. First one is very literal. As I grew up nearby the ocean is very important for me. My main passion is surf, so it's full of peacefulness. You know, that's why a lot of anxious people love water. Anxious people love water because they have powerful in very calm, etc. But also, water is ambivalent because water means tears, but it means life. It means also the powerfulness of the waves can be dangerous also. So that is why there is a lot of water here.
So there's an emotional
Charge.
I think it's fair to say that anything that you see in Sophie's paintings will be there for a reason. And that's never any incident or accidental. It's all very, very precisely picked and chosen carefully.
But in a very strange way, everything is here for a reason, but nothing has been made in a very planned way. So it's meaningful, but it's also very spontaneous.
Natural.
Yeah.
And what about, sorry, just this painting, if you don't mind. I love the reflection, but what's the meaning behind it?
Of the reflection?
Of the painting.
The was painting.
Yeah.
In one night, they took from me what I have not managed to find again, left in the open sea, holding back my tears with bitter shamelessness, first times. So, I explain first the poem, and then you will understand the painting. So, in one night, they took from me what I have not managed to find again. It is related to the first sexual experiences of a girl, and managed to find again is not it's not to be able to find like the real pleasure, because you know I wanted to deal with the orgasm gap between men and women, and it's just since like 1 or 2 years since now. But people are questioning that inequality between men and women. Holding back my tears is that women at the end of a sexual relation, they are not able to say, oh, I didn't come. It wasn't okay for me, and yeah, they are left on the bed and just with some frustration. And now we are like a little bit by bit, more able to say, no, it's not okay. So that painting, I wanted to take the reference of the Salvator Mundi, which the most famous painting is painting by Da Vinci. And it's in the way I wanted to deify the woman with this hand that bless people, that say yes or no about her own body and what she's allowed or not about her own pleasure. And yeah, she's holding back her teeth with this glass in her hand. And we have all the bodies, the two bodies on the right and the left, but crying because it's about all the women whose the pleasure is not considered enough. And in the water we have the reflection, or it could be blood, the blood of the first times, so it depends, free of interpretation.
Thank you so much. So, unless there's any more questions, I'd like to thank you all for coming today to listen to Sophie and her incredible story and journey through these incredible paintings that she's created for us here today. And I really invite you to stick around and just really take your time to look at paintings and immerse yourself in their individual stories. And thank you all